On our broadcast tonight, states of emergency. A wild night as a dangerous blizzard brings much of the Northeast to a standstill. Up to 3 feet of snow piling up, major cities and airports shutting down. On edge in the state of California, they're now going door to door searching for an armed and dangerous sniper who's hunting police officers and their families. And the fleecing of America, $1 billion worth of our tax money being wasted in Washington. Is it any way to run our government? Tonight, what we've uncovered. Nightly News begins now.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams.
Good evening. Here is one example of just how bad it's getting along the East Coast tonight. In Massachusetts, all vehicles were ordered off the roads at 4 p.m. this afternoon. That's across the entire state of Massachusetts. Genuine blizzard warnings are posted across a big area. This is the northern shore of Massachusetts, just outside of Boston, Revere Beach, where the winds have already picked up. We could see some history-making snowfall out of this storm. We've already seen a colossal stoppage of transportation in the most heavily populated corridor in this country, affecting 50 million Americans before it's all over. While all this has been going on the other coast, we have a huge story, of course, that we've been following. More on that in a moment. But first, what could be a 30-inch snow event here on the East Coast. Our team is out in it and in place tonight. We want to begin with NBC's Ron Mott. He's in Providence, Rhode Island. Ron, good evening.
Hey, Brian, good evening to you. Long before the teeth of this storm fully clamps down on New England later tonight, its bite was being felt, and the discomfort, well, it spread all over. A 19-vehicle pileup this morning in southern Maine was among the earliest indications that today was going to be trouble. Luckily, only minor injuries.
What you see there is a tractor trailer on I-84 that is flipped on its side.
Traffic got topsy-turvy in Connecticut, too, and signs of things getting worse before getting better were just about everywhere throughout the storm zone, as power trucks await the call to duty from as far away as Ohio.
I'm asking the general public to make decisions that are wise.
Officials again repeated warnings for people to stay home and out of the mounting mess.
I guess Mother Nature's making up for last year.
Yielding to fleets of snowplows, making room for emergencies. In Rhode Island, a slow start for accumulations quickened by afternoon. Massachusetts and Connecticut governors each ordered roadways cleared at 4 o'clock, a ban on traffic. For those still needing to travel, rail service ground to a halt, triggering a midday evening rush at New York's Penn Station. Airports, including LaGuardia, were at all but a standstill.
I'm from Minnesota. I know snow, but just don't want to be stuck here for a few days.
The exodus turned hustle and bustle in Providence and Boston into what looked like movie sets, minus the action.
This is coming right off of the ocean here, and this is what has emergency management officials so concerned.
But along the coast, that's exactly what's expected later. A major storm surge taking heavy amounts of snow for a bumpy, wild overnight ride. And ahead of what could be an extended hibernation for many this weekend, last-minute shopping runs, especially to fortify the fridge.
We're getting enough supplies so we can make a hot pot of chicken soup for the weekend.
Two of the biggest sellers today, gasoline and liquor. One liquor store manager said they did 5 times the normal business for a Friday, saying it was almost like Christmas in February, Brian.
Ron Mott starting us off in Providence, Rhode Island tonight. Ron, good evening and take care up there. We want to show you how big this system looks from space. Look at the tops of these clouds. Again, this is not one but 2 storms joining together. Not visible in that picture. Our friend Al Roker, he's in Boston in the thick of it, but it's going to get much thicker as the night goes on. Al, tell us about where it is and where we're headed.
Well, Brian, this storm is about 200 miles away from Boston, and we're getting ominous signs of it starting to intensify. We've been hearing reports about thunder snow in Long Island, and even more ominously in Providence, Rhode Island, and parts of Rhode Island. Power lines and trees are snapping and going down, and power outages are being reported. We have winter storm warnings up now for interior sections of New York State, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, all the way into interior New England, but the areas in red from New York to Eastport, Maine. Blizzard warnings in effect. Really strong winds, very strong accumulations. Here, take a look on the radar. You can see all that moisture coming in off the Atlantic, the cold air streaming in from the north, and where the two meet, that's where we're getting all these blizzard-like conditions that are really starting to develop across Long Island, Connecticut, and now moving into Rhode Island and Massachusetts. Snowfall accumulations generally about 6 inches to a foot in interior sections of New York. New York City, though, anywhere from a foot to a foot and a half. And then the areas in gray from interior Connecticut, coastal Massachusetts into New England. We're talking about 2 to 2.5, maybe even 3 feet of snow. And as you can see, winds are starting to pick up, and that's going to be a big story, too. We're talking about sustained winds tonight into tomorrow between 25 and 40-mile-per-hour winds, with gusts approaching and sometimes exceeding hurricane-force conditions. We'll continue to update you tonight on the Weather Channel. A full report tomorrow morning on Wake Up with Al, starting at 5 a.m., and then the Today Show at 7. Brian, back
Al
to you.
Roker on a very snowy Boston Common. Al, thanks. And as we said, this storm has brought so much to a standstill. As they like to say in storms like this, if you're not already where you wanted to be, there's little use trying. That means roads, rails, especially the sky. The airspace is pretty much shut down. Rahima Ellis is at New York LaGuardia. She was ordered outside the airport unceremoniously when the inside part was shut down late today. Rahima, looks pretty quiet there.
Indeed, Brian, this is how this storm is impacting travel. Look here at one of the nation's busiest airports. New York's LaGuardia Airport is virtually empty on a Friday evening. The monitors inside the terminal tell the story. More than 1,800 cancellations at New York area's airports. Connecticut's Bradley International Airport shut down earlier today. 4,700 flights were canceled nationwide yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Good news for passengers. Airlines waived the cancellation fees, hoping passengers would make other plans. Overnight, 200 pieces of snow removal equipment will be used to clear the planes and the runways, hoping to get operations back on track sometime Sunday. And speaking of tracks, Amtrak shut down service between New York and Boston earlier this afternoon, with limited service tomorrow. And as Ron Mott mentioned, a travel ban is in place in Connecticut and Massachusetts, and so no matter how you look at it, this storm is making it hard to get around. Brian?
Rahima Ellis in the quiet confines of New York LaGuardia. Rahima, thanks. And we mentioned this earlier, as the New York Times put it today. Perhaps in any other year, this nor'easter would have been met with little more than a shrug around this region. But remember, this year, little more than 100 days after Hurricane Sandy decimated a huge part of this area, this storm is hitting the same people along the same coastline that have just been hit. So even hardened New Yorkers are taking no chances this time, getting prepared early in case the power goes out especially. Some folks have been waiting over an hour to get gas, and we found some gas stations in New York and New Jersey already out of fuel. Weather Channel meteorologist Mike Seidel is up in Revere Beach, just north, well, going in and out because of the satellite signal, just north of the city of Boston, with more on this storm's early edge arrival. Hey, Mike.
Hey, good evening, Brian. The winds here on the North Shore have already gusted over 50 miles an hour. And before the storm pulls out tomorrow afternoon, gusts could top 70. The beaches and islands will take the biggest hit with significant beach erosion, some of it extreme, also moderate to major coastal flooding. Tomorrow's high tide is the one of concern around 10 a.m. That, combined with 20-foot breakers on the beach and a 4.5-foot surge in some spots, will likely cause structural damage, and some coastal roads will go underwater. Because of that tonight, some local police departments, including Situate, have told their residents to head for higher ground and evacuate. Overnight, snowfall rates of 2 to 3 inches an hour and winds pushing hurricane force will likely